Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. This feels very strange sitting back on camera. It feels like it's been a very long time, but I've been really excited to sit down and chat to you about what I've been knitting on, some future plans. As you might be able to hear in my voice, I am not very well. I feel a lot better than I sound, but please excuse the voice. I will come on a little bit to the probable cause of my cold at the end in a bit of a life update, because I know lots of you are wishing me well on my recent trip, so I will cover that towards the end. But for now, I thought I'd dive straight into some knitting. So I have got multiple finished objects this week. I thought I'd have a couple more, but I'm pretty proud. So as you can see, one of my finished objects is what has now been named my Summer's Evening sweater. I was going to call it Summer's Eve, but I've been made aware that is also a brand name for a medical product. So we're going to go with Summer's Evening, but the idea being quite literally that this jumper will be perfect for throwing on in the evening in the summer, but it is also perfect for this transitional weather during the spring. And this design is now in testing. So before I launch into details, if you would be interested in joining the test knit, we have a great group that is gradually growing of fantastic testers who are helping me out with this. This is my first garment design. And with that, I, fully put my hands up that, the whole grading experience was very new for me. I have done my absolute utmost to make it the best possible version I can before sending it out to testers, and it was a little bit delayed going out to testers. I was hoping to get it out before my trip, and it's come out after. So testing is going to be really important for this. I really want to make sure that the sizing works for every single size, and I've also included a formula, and it is a compound construction of multiple different construction types, which means it's hard to draw inspiration or draw, I guess, a reference point from other patterns. So yeah, new, but very exciting. So I will be putting out a further test knit call on Instagram, but equally if you are interested, feel free to message me directly and I'll send you the link to the form. But for now, details on this. So I will insert a picture of me here where you can kind of see it in more detail. I'm not wearing the best combined outfit to be kind of standing up and showing you today, but the sweater is knit on 3.75mm needles. I've decided to knit it in a very light fingering weight yarn. The grey yarn for the main body part is Filcolana Saga, which is a beautiful lightweight lamb's wool 2-ply. And I think you get about 300 meters per 50 grams. And then the sleeves are in Isager Highland Wool, which is also a really lightweight 2-ply fingering. I think you get about 275 meters per 50 grams. So both very lightweight. I wanted something that was airy, breathable, but where the gauge didn't look too loose. So we're operating at around a 23 stitch gauge. So on 3.75mm needles. So airy, but not too open is the hope. The sweater is constructed with 3 different types of shaping until you get to the body, and then it is knit straight. The sleeves have got some tapering in them, and then the jumper is finished with trims in I-cords in the contrasting colours at the neck and the sleeves. I've opted to have the same colour trim for the body, but you could equally do the body with a different trim. But I guess the kind of funky thing with the sweater is the main thing is around the shaping. So whilst I've chosen to colour block the sleeves, you could do it all in the same colour. You could do it in a fluffy yarn. You could do it in a heavier weight yarn, which would then give you a denser fabric. You could do bits in colour work. It's a blank canvas. The main point of the whole pattern is the fit. So I'm really excited to see what my test knitters produce, and hopefully when the pattern goes out into the world, if you all love it, then I'd be really keen to see what you make with it. I am going to be joining the test knit and knitting another version for myself. Oh, sirens in the background, sorry. I'll be joining the test knit and knitting another version for myself because I'm just excited by the possibilities with this. I might also knit a slightly different size. My idea had been that the pattern should be 2 inches of positive ease, and those are built in to all the sizes. But I'm kind of keen to see as well whether the fit works as well when you build in more positive ease. So maybe like 4 to 6 inches. we will see. But yeah, that might be something on my needles ahead of the next episode. So this is my first finished object. My second finished object was a pair of vanilla socks that I had not even cast on when the last episode went up. I got partway into my trip and had the idea that I was going to knit my friend who'd been hosting us on the trip a pair of socks that I had knit in yarn from that country and that I had knit whilst we toured around the country. So I'll insert a picture here because these have already been gifted, but these are a pair of 2 strands held double, so a mohair and what I believe to be kind of a merino lamb's wool 2-ply. No nylon in it. Held with mohair, and I just cast on 72 stitches, did a 2x2 rib for a folded down cuff, and then just worked my vanilla sock recipe that I'm slowly perfecting, and added a little bit on the end because my friend has got bigger feet than I do. So yeah, and I think they fit her really, really well. Really, really, like, just so lovely to knit something for her. She's been a huge supporter of me, my podcast, of like everything that I do in my knitting, even though she's not a knitter. So yeah, that felt very, very right, and she's very, very knit worthy. So a lovely project to work on, and nice to kind of knit something in a colour that maybe I wouldn't have knit for myself. So that was my next finished object. That feels slightly crazy that I have now, that's like my second or third pair of socks this year, which again, given I'm not a sock knitter, I wouldn't call myself a sock knitter. I think that's kind of crazy. So that is my second finished object. I was wondering about bringing my strand hill slipover onto the podcast. I did show it last time as a finished object, but it was still slightly damp and so I didn't put it on. I will insert a picture here of me wearing it. Now, I love the design. The weight of the item is beautiful. I've had so many people kind of pick it up if it's been like on the sofa or I've just taken it off, whatever, and they've been like, oh, the weight of that is gorgeous, the like feel of it is amazing. And it really is, and I think the texture and the kind of finishing details are really lovely. I wouldn't say this fits me in the way that I had hoped it would. I have sent out my like feedback form back to the designer because this was a test knit, and maybe my gauge was off, maybe I picked the wrong size, I don't know. There was quite big bust circumference ranges for each size, and I think I mentioned this when I test knit for them before. I think having quite big ranges per size can be quite tricky because that fit is going to be very different whether you're at the bottom end of that range or the top end of that range, equally in the middle. So yeah, I'd say basically there is a lot more of my bust showing at the sides of the slipover than maybe I would want, and I think it makes it look like it's too small for me. That is probably compounded by the fact that I didn't do the full length slipover. I did a kind of cropped version, but I'd say the width of the slipover maybe needs to be increased as compared to the collar version, and both, I believe, kind of follow roughly the same set of instructions. So yeah, that's I think like more of a personal experience for me. I think lots of the other testers have created absolutely stunning versions. They look beautiful on them, they've got a bit more ease and they kind of sit a bit wider. So as I say, this could be a me error and I've got the gauge wrong or I've just picked the wrong size. But that was my experience of that. So, and I should have said the designer is Sharon of Contour Knit, who's actually working on some really interesting projects at the moment. If you follow her over on Instagram, she's doing like a series on Aran knitting stitches and Aran designs, and I just think this is fascinating. Some really, really beautiful content coming from her, really interesting, really like educational, really creative. So I really don't want any of my comments about the finished item to, you know, be seen as reflecting, you know, any criticism of the designer. I really enjoy her work. I really want to continue to support her work. And as I say, I love the finishing details she puts into things. But I think, you know, and going through this design process myself, you know, I do understand the sizing is the really tricky part of a design. And And I think it's very hard to get that really good. So yes, those are my thoughts on that. I have what is very, very close to being classed as a half finished object, but I'm going to kind of treat it as a whip. So maybe we segue into whips, maybe? Okay, so I kind of thought I'd have made this into like a solidly half finished object by this episode. Not quite, but almost. So in terms of the last 2 weeks, as I said, I've been travelling. I had that pair of socks that I finished during the trip. I think I knit those in 5 days. That was all I knit on. On the way there though, I had cast on my self-striping sock yarn. This is actually inside out, so apologies, but you can still kind of get the idea. I cast on 72 stitches for my self-striping yarn from Dragon Hill Yarn. I have just loved this colourway. What did I do? This is the winter warmer colourway. I've cast on 2.5mm needles, and I've put a contrasting cuff in, which is a Filcolana Arwetta, which is some tiny, tiny scraps left over from my Strand Hill Slipover. This is in like a biscuity colourway. And I was knitting along it, and then I thought, actually, I really want to make sure I make the most of this yarn. Like, I don't want a small scrap left over, but I also don't want to be playing yarn chicken, because I'm not very good yet at judging. I'm not very good at judging how much yarn I'll need for each section. So even if I divided the yarn in half, like even if I weighed out 25 grams and 25 grams, I still wouldn't know how long to knit the cuff before turning the heel. Do you know what I mean? I haven't quite understood yet how much yarn I use for each section. I was very rambly. So what have I done? I am knitting it into a massive tube, which is really fun and just very relaxing. So I have got this much yarn left, which looks like quite a lot, but it's been going down so rapidly. I really thought I was almost there, but hey, maybe this weekend. So got this much left. We'll keep, just as I say, knitting the tube. I'm going to put a toe on the end of the tube, I think, and then obviously divide it in half and make it into socks. Now this is my first time picking up stitches on a sock and then cutting to then separate, and it will be my first time putting in an afterthought heel. But I thought, look, whilst I'm on my sock kick, why not challenge myself? I'm absolutely loving this yarn. For some of you might remember, this is a blend of merino and yak, and I think a little bit of nylon. It's stunning. It's so, so beautiful. I just love it. It's just feeling so silky, so gorgeous. And I just love this colourway. I think I said in my last episode, it kind of reminds me of Scotland. So very happy days. So that is my kind of first whip, I guess. I think coming off my trip, I was maybe to like here. So I've knit quite a lot since coming back. I've been back maybe a couple of days, but really, really enjoying that. Some of you might remember from my last episode, I was talking about what else I was going to pack to take with me knitting wise. And I did take my Downtown Hoodie by Tori Yu. Now, I don't get why I'm not working on that. Like, it's exactly what I need right now, but I think if I hadn't knit those socks whilst I was away, I think I would have done a lot more on the hoodie, but the hoodie has not moved. It's like I packed it and did nothing on it. So I'm really hoping to crack on with that over the next week or so. I could really do with that hoodie right now, like I'd be wearing it all the time. So yeah, that's a completely illogical decision from me, but hey, I had cast on for the last episode though and took with me The Big Love by Ankestrick, and I have made a lot of progress. So again, I'd kind of set milestones in my head of like where I wanted this to be at by this podcast episode, but when I set those milestones, I had not embarked on that pair of socks, so that obviously shifted things quite a bit. But nonetheless, I feel like I've made pretty decent progress. So how best to show you guys? It's got needles and strands of yarn everywhere. So this is the right side. So I have knit the back of the shoulders, like the back panel up to here, and then you kind of cast on the neckline to begin with, and then you put bits on hold. So I've really picked up that bit and picked up the shoulder on the right hand side, and I'm now working that. As you can see, it's this gorgeous texture, knit and pearl texture. So yeah, I think some decent progress given I also knit a pair of socks in the time I've been working on this. Apologies that it is so crumpled, it's obviously been in the project bag. But yeah, I'm obsessed. So what am I knitting? What are the details? So I think I'm knitting either the 2nd or the 3rd size. I know this is meant to have quite a huge amount of positive ease. I think I'll have just a tiny bit less than I'm meant to. The shoulder panel at the moment is looking quite narrow for that amount of positive ease, but I think this yarn combo is going to grow quite considerably, so I'm not too worried. I didn't swatch because I figured there was so much positive ease built in and I'd be okay with it being a lot snugger than what the designer had intended. I am knitting this on 4mm needles, which I believe is the recommended needle size. I am working in Wool Dreamers Manchalopi in the colourway burnt orange or bright orange, which it's hard to show on camera but has actually got flecks of like pink and yellow in it, so it's a really complex colour and I love it. And then I'm holding it with I've got a cone of Holst Garn Coast base, which is their wool silk blend, and they've got this beautiful colour called Chianti, which is a pink flecked with some cream, and I'm holding the two of them together and it's giving this kind of pinky, orangey, russety colour. It looks different in loads of different lights. In some lights it looks a little bit muddy and I kind of love that, and then in other lights it looks really sunsetty. I'm just obsessed with it, if I'm honest. Like visually it just really like gets my creative juices flowing. I just love it. So was very happy to put quite a lot of progress into this. I think I would have put even more if it was not for the fact that I'm working with the Wool Dreamers Manchalopi is an unspun yarn. Now I'm actually finding it's quite stable when held with the Holst Garn Coast base, but I'm holding one strand, and the way that the cake is made, I don't know if I can show you easily, but the way that the cake is made, it's wound into the cake held double. So if you're holding it single, you have to kind of, where's my end? Whoops. If you are holding it single, you have to kind of separate out the two strands, and then I'm having to kind of twist them into their own little balls, and that takes quite a while. And then, you know, you've already got 2 balls on the project, and then you've got all of these little, so anyway, it's a bit fiddly for plain knitting or like traveling. I'll come on to this more at the end, but I also just didn't get as much knitting done on the plane as I had hoped. So yeah, we've got progress. I have turned off the heating in my house, so actually like having this jackety cardigan would be perfect right now. So I think I will keep plodding ahead with it. I haven't really touched it since I've got back, but I am aiming to pick it up again this weekend. Yeah, just really enjoying it. And it's not going as slowly as I thought, given that it's a knit pearl texture. I don't know about everyone else, but I can knit without looking. Knitting without looking when you're holding 2 strands together and one of them is unspun yarn is slightly harder. And I also don't find knit and pearl textures quite as easy to not look at. And therefore I'm kind of very engrossed in this project, head down, and I can't really be doing that for long periods of time. So that slows things down. So given that, very happy. So given that I didn't work on the downtown hoodie, and given that I also took some yarn with me that I'd caked up, it was some yarn I'd bought in Scotland, and I'd said to you guys that I was going to cast on a new design that I wanted to work on whilst in Japan, I didn't touch that. Again, sock project took over. But then when I've come back, I have been doing a little bit of sorting in the house, and a project that I came across and just really excited me was my George's sweater, which for longer term viewers of the podcast, you'll know I was working on this last year. I was planning on making 2 George's sweaters, one for each of my bridesmaids. And I think lots of viewers were quite excited to see my George's sweater because the original pattern, which is by Johanna, if I'm pronouncing her surname correctly, also known as Kolibri by Johanna on Instagram, her version has got quite a maximalist like bow tie at the back, which is really big. It looks really cool. I think she wore the sweater for her wedding. But I wanted to make one with maybe like a smaller, more understated tie at the back. And I think lots of people were really excited to see what that looked like. Johanna produces some really beautiful designs that are really like, they're kind of like little pieces of art. Like I feel like they push boundaries a little bit with like knitting construction. I think they look very high fashion, very designer. But I think with that, a bit, I'm not saying I'm a high fashion designer like her, but in terms of maybe designing things that there are not so many like precedents for, I think a bit like I was finding it quite tricky getting the kind of grading right on this, I think equally she probably, I don't know, probably faces some similar challenges when trying to work out how to reproduce the same look across various sizes. And the reason I raised this is this was basically why I had to abandon this project as an idea for my wedding, amongst other reasons. But I had knit the entire body, plus I then started applying the I-cord around the edge. And the reason I had to abandon it at that point was that I had kind of hoped, I'd followed all the instructions perfectly for the back. The back has this beautiful deep V, and part of those instructions basically involved a quite sudden set of increases that were far more rapid than they had been up until that point. And it kind of created like a bit of a step. And I was thinking, okay, well maybe the I-cord levels those all out into this kind of beautiful straight V. And when I then applied the I-cord, it really, really didn't. So that, combined with the fact that the colour was not quite perfect with the bridesmaids dresses, which was so annoying. That was a whole saga. If you're interested, you can flit on back. I'll try and link it above. But I abandoned the project, and I just said to myself, right, I've spent so much money on that yarn, I will pick that up at another time and I will redo the back and I'll make it for me. So I have ripped it back to basically just after the sleeve split. Dun dun dun. And I have already begun, there we go, that's the sleeve split up there. I have already begun working the back again. And basically I'm just going to continue the same rate of increases as was prescribed for the top of the back all the way down. And I appreciate that's quite a big modification to the pattern. It may have its cons, there might be issues with it, but let's just see, because I am knitting this in Knitting for Olive, their merino base, and also their mohair. It's probably the most money I've invested in yarn from one brand for 1/2 projects in one go. It was expensive, I'm not gonna lie, and I really just want this project to be perfect, so it doesn't matter how many times I have to rip back. This is going to be my luxury sweater in my wardrobe. The colour, by the way, is bottle green. I know on a couple of websites the colour of the yarn in the picture versus the name doesn't always like all marry up. For example, on some websites this colour was called slate green, on other websites it's called bottle green. I ended up just referring to the Knitting for Olive website. I really love the colour, I think it's beautiful, it's super nuanced in certain lights. But yeah, I'm knitting this on 5mm needles, so I think this will zoom. I think that was my other kind of like, ooh, when I picked it up I was like, oh, it's going to go really quick. And yeah, I'm going to be working on this over the next couple of weeks. I think this will be really, I love this colour with my hair. I think this will be really, really beautiful in the spring, that kind of open back look. Maybe I can find like a kind of little like lacy bralette thing to put underneath it. I think it will look really beautiful. So I'm really excited for it. It is super soft. But yeah, I'll keep working down the body. I might give myself a little break and work on the sleeves for a bit, and then the whole thing is finished off with an I-cord. So loads of I-cord knitting at the moment. But yes, very happy to have picked this back up. It felt bad that this was languishing. This is how much I frogged. Isn't that crazy? I didn't reset the yarn after frogging. I'm just knitting it back up again. I think mainly because I'm knitting it at the same gauge, and because I know I'll block this, and so far I don't think you can really tell the yarn's been frogged, so I am happy. I'm just hoping and praying that I remembered the needle size right, because I started knitting on this right before I got a lot better at like making notes on my knitting. So yeah, we've just got to hope that I'm knitting at the same gauge. I think so. So there we go. That is the other thing that I've been working on. So that is all the like projects I've got to show you. I think in summary, I am kind of feeling like I kind of want to clear the needles a bit again. I had this kind of feeling just before Christmas, and I managed to like kind of monogamously churn through a number of projects. But I think that the reason I kind of want to do that is I have got other things on my mind that I want to cast on. It won't stop me casting them on if I've already got projects on the needles, but yeah, it's kind of this funny, I'm kind of feeling like I need to finish things and I want to cast things on. I'm being pretty good at holding fire on the cast on until I've got these other ones off the needles. I've got a mixture of design ideas on my mind and patterns that will teach me new techniques, which was both things that I really wanted to focus on this year. So as an example of things helping inspire me with my designing, I have borrowed this book from my local library. This is Vintage Knit, 25 knitting and crochet patterns refashioned for today, and it's written by Maureen Malik with Geraldine Warner. And there's just some really awesome patterns in here. Most of them are from like the 1950s, 1930s, from a range of countries. I think there's some from America, some from Norway, some from the UK. Some of them are definitely not to my taste, but there is just one or two where the construction I think is fascinating, and the degree of tailoring in knitwear during that period, you know, that was where the emphasis on the waist was really high and structure around the shoulders, and knitting was far more seamed. So I think there's a lot I can learn from this, a lot of inspiration I can take for my design work. There's one design in particular, I've swatched for it, I have the yarn, I have the vision in my head so clearly. The big question mark in my mind is how best to construct what I have in my mind. So yeah, I'm enjoying, that feels like a real challenge for me, like it feels like almost engineering, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm hoping this book can help me a little bit. I'm just so delighted that my local library has it. I do really encourage people, if you're seeing books, knitting books, and you really want to read them, you really want to kind of support the designer in making their items, but for whatever reason the books might be out of your budget, lots of local libraries have a surprisingly high collection of knit books, and like the modern ones. So there was a whole load of liner magazines, there was a whole line of publishing, there was the Wilderness knit book, there was there was a whole list of them. Anyway, there'll be different ones in different libraries, but yeah, just encouraging people that purchasing books, whilst that might be the ideal, if that's not affordable or doable for you, then there might be other ways of getting hold of them. So yeah, really enjoying that book. The other pattern from a book, actually, speaking of a line of publishing, that is on my mind. Longer term viewers will know I have the Mui wrap scarf from Nina Tanskanen on my needle. Well, I say on my needles, it's on hold, but let me try and show you without showing you all the instructions. Looks like this. It's beautiful. I cast this on last autumn when I picked up this book, but I found the construction really fiddly, which I should have really realised, because it's a really cool shape, and to make that, it's going to involve a bit of thought process, but it's on waste yarn at the moment. I will go back to it. It might be something I pick up in the summer for the autumn, because the colours are really, really autumnal. But I feel bad casting on a different thing from this book when I've still got that I haven't worked on, but you've got to kind of go slightly with what your creative juices are telling you. So let me now re-find it, because I've now lost my page. I really would like to cast on the Haliste shawl by Alex Bird. And I don't know if you can see, but it's got this beautiful technique called rosamine, or rusamine, or correct me guys. Lots of you may have already come across it. I think it's had a resurgence and it's really popular. I know quite a few designs that use it. I haven't tried it yet, and I really would like to. This shawl looks like, for me, it's kind of the perfect combination of stockinette and then that little bit of detail. I also, my house is freezing, so I'm finding that I'm wrapping up in blankets an awful lot, and whereas before, like in earlier periods of my life, I felt like shawls were something I knit because I loved the process, but I didn't actually wear them very much. Now I'm finding because I'm working from home, I'm sat cold all the time, so I'm wearing them a lot. And I think that's kind of re-emphasised, or like, I don't know, rekindled my love of shawl knitting. So this might be on my needles by the next time I speak to you guys. I really think it's a really gorgeous pattern. And I'm thinking about yarn choices. I thought I had the perfect yarn combination, but it's completely the wrong weight of yarn. I had like a kind of heavy DK to worsted weight yarn that I was really keen to use, but this is definitely a fingering weight pattern. And I think because of the proportions of the wingspan versus the depth, I think going for I would normally just go, oh, I'll just make, I'll make it in a thicker yarn, it would just be bigger. But actually, I think what would probably happen is it would be really, really deep, but I wouldn't have the wingspan to kind of equal out that depth, and I think it might be quite hard to wear. So we will just see. But those are just a couple of my points of inspiration, a couple of future knitting plans. As I said, I really would like to get more work done on the Downtown Hoodie by Tori Yu. I would love to make some pretty heady progress on the other whips that I showed you today, but I can't rule out them. I've got some new things on ahead of the next episode. Feeling very, very knitty at the moment. There's also that lonely single sock in Gepard Garn Cash sock. I need to knit the other half of that. So yeah, I would love to hear from you guys what your kind of cast on mojo is like at the moment. As I said, for me, it's quite a complicated mixture of feelings, but something that is really inspiring me is getting all my knits out and figuring out like outfits they go with, which is never something I've really done before. I have just worn my hand knitwear, but I've kind of just like thrown it on with things. I've never really like looked at my wardrobe and been like, what's missing hand knit wise, or like I've never like looked at things like, I don't know, blouses and things like that and gone, what would look nice with that knit wise? How can I knit something to go with that? I've definitely noticed like functional gaps in my wardrobe, like hand warmers, for example. So yeah, I'm kind of excited doing this, looking at it this way around. I will be making next week a video basically summarising everything I've knit from January through to the end of March and how I've been wearing it. And I'm really excited to bring that to you as well. I've been wearing this jumper non-stop in the last week or so. I've worn it with so many different outfits, so I'm really excited to kind of photograph some of those and show you. And I think it's kind of made me fall in love with my hand knits all over again. I don't know about everyone else, but you know, there's only so many days of the year that you can wear your hand knits. Some people might disagree, particularly if you're someone who loves knitting summer garments, but I'm not a massive summer garment knitter, so there definitely is a few months where I don't really wear my hand knits as much. And so inevitably there might be some pieces you wear less than others, and I think that's something I'm really trying to change now. And I'm actually kind of making sure I wear something hand knit every single day, even if it's just for a few hours in the evening, and it's making me feel so good. Like, I love it. So I thought I'd share that happiness with you guys. I thought, as I say, would kind of wrap it all together in a kind of what I've made so far this year and how I've worn it and how I've enjoyed it. So that will be coming next week. Another video that you can expect hopefully over the weekend is a video summing up my trip to Japan and the yarn that I got there. I was contemplating showing that yarn here because it kind of does link to some future knitting plans, but I think I'll leave that for that video because I can give you all the context around where I got it from, my thought process behind buying it. But safe to say, I really made the most of being in Japan yarn shop wise. I visited 4, that didn't even really scratch the surface. I really wanted to visit 5 or 6. There's one in particular I really wanted to go to, and just opening times and days just didn't match up. But I will cover all that in that video, so do look out for that. As with my other yarn shop tours in Edinburgh and in Prague, it will hopefully be kind of like a 10 to 15 minute video, so not too long, but hopefully jam-packed with inspo and ideas. So yeah, I think that's all the like purely knitty content. If you would like to hear a little bit about my trip and a bit of a life update, then please do stick around. I won't babble on for too long, but just thought I'd give you, a couple of updates. If you are leaving me here, then thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope I didn't kind of ramble through things too quickly. And again, apologies about my voice, but I hope that kind of gave you a nice little update of where I'm up to. Please do let me know what you're up to down in the comments. I really, really love hearing it. And I really hope you stay safe and well for the next couple of weeks. So, life update. What has been going on? Well, I was travelling for a total of 9 days. 3 of those were kind of pure travel. So 6 days total in Japan, which was amazing. Really, really loved it. As I say, more to follow kind of on Japan itself in my main video. The one thing I would say is I kind of thought I was going to get so much knitting done on the plane. I had 2 18+ hour sets of flights. I had layovers and stuff, but very, very long flights. And yeah, they turned the cabin lights down pretty much like an hour after takeoff until an hour before we sat down. So it just didn't leave very much room for knitting. I mean, I had my little reading light on, but there was only kind of so long you could have that on. Everyone else was sleeping on the flight. So yeah, that was kind of disappointing. I thought I'd get so much more done. But hey, I've really made up for that during the 6 days I was in Japan. And then since I've come back, I've knitted, yeah, quite a lot. Not constant. I've knit more in my life, but I've knit quite a lot. But yes, the kind of other context, I guess, is in the lead up to going to Japan. I had quite a long to-do list I was trying to get done. I really wanted to take that as a real like bit of headspace and a break and reset, and I think I did succeed in that. We are partway through a bathroom renovation project. I'd been hoping to kind of get some more stuff on that up online before I went, but as with any renovation, like I'm not even surprised, it's very predictable. There's been kind of a few hiccups with that. On the one hand, all the walls have gone up to make this new bathroom. On the other hand, we've had some issues, like our plumber has unfortunately become unwell, and we've kind of had to slightly reset on how we're going to get that aspect of the project done, and costs just escalate as they always do. So yeah, that's been a really interesting one. I have spent a lot of time finding stuff for the bathroom on Facebook Marketplace and have really enjoyed doing that. So if any of you are trying to solve any kind of problem in your home, whether it's like a storage problem, whether it's a whatever, like do check out Facebook Marketplace, because we've found some things that are way better than what we ever could have found buying new. It's very magical. So yeah, there you go. That's my little piece of advice of the day. But yes, the renovation's taking a lot of time. I have been investing a lot of time in my charity work over the last 3 months, and some of that has come to a nice conclusion over the last week or so. That's been a huge privilege, huge pleasure to see that kind of progress and to work with some individuals to really help them reach like their potential and their fulfillment. So I found that very rewarding. It's actually triggered me to think that I might kind of go into coaching a little bit more. I'm kind of slightly adverse to the phrase life coach, because I think there's some sort of implication behind that you kind of, you as the life coach kind of have that sorted. And let's be honest, like who does? But I think I found the process of kind of listening to someone and asking them questions to help them figure out and problem solve some things that are causing frustration in their lives. I found that really rewarding, and from what I understand from them, it's been a very meaningful and successful process for them. So yeah, I don't know whether being like a professional question asker is a thing, but I'm contemplating it. So that's really interesting career-wise to be having to think about. Other than that, it's been a really interesting month in the sense that I haven't really seen my husband. We haven't had a chance to bridge the geographical long distance very much this month. The last time I saw him was when we were in Edinburgh. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully a weekend spent with him. And yeah, other than that, life is ticking along at quite a scary pace. I knew that March would feel like a month out because I was doing so much travelling, But I'm really excited for this next week to finish March off and then to get stuck into April and, you know, proper spring. The weather here in the UK does not feel like spring right now. It is disgusting. It's wet and it's rainy and it's grey and it's just ugh. But I am excited for this season. And yeah, I think that's all my ramblings for you guys. I think that's my little life update. Yeah, the cold is 100% from the plane. I tend to get ill off the back of being on long haul flights. I do my best not to. I take vitamin C, I wear a mask, I keep hydrated, all of the above, but I just always get one. So I am kind of slightly determined not to let that set me back this week. I'm just trying to get good night's sleeps and yeah, just keep going because I really was keen to hit the ground running when I got back, so that's important to me. So yeah, aside from that, I'm looking forward to coming to you guys with some more content over the next week or so of various kinds and to keep cracking on with my knitting. I'm really keen to hear from you guys what you're up to, as I said before, and if there's any questions you've got for me that you'd like me to tackle in the next podcast, or if you've got any like Nat's knitting, or maybe it's about me, I don't know. But any questions of any sort, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys would be interested in hearing about, and I wish you a very good couple of weeks. Lots of knitting, lots of downtime, hopefully some nicer weather than what I've got here. And I will speak to you very, very soon. Bye guys.